My name is Brant, and the day is the 8th day of June 2020. And what I want to talk to you about is simply those who seek to overthrow this country, America, that is. And I'm going to draw on some history, some political science and international affairs. Some of my information comes from this book here, and a good bit of my information will come through what I call during Lincoln's Marxists. And but I wanted first just to share with you what took place to me many years ago when I was probably a sophomore or junior in a political science class, having a debate, and we were talking about globalism, but I don't know if we used that word. We may have said communism or something of that nature. And I remember arguing on the other side that it made no sense for us to get involved in a world government, simply because as a 20-year-old kid, it made no sense. We have enough problems with corresponding and trying to get our politicians in Washington to do the right thing. And if it's a world government, it being probably in Europe or elsewhere, is going to be even far worse than it is in Washington. And it's kind of simplistic thinking in that regard as a 20-year-old kid. That's 40 years ago. But I was surprised at my classmates, that is poli-sci majors, and probably some were not poli-sci majors. There were probably 25 or 30 of us at University of South Carolina at Aiken that were poli-sci majors. There might have been more. Some were pursuing doing political science and going to be lawyers. That was my original goal, but I changed my mind as I was in school, and I chose to get involved in international affairs. That is, international studies, international relations was what I was interested in. No, I did not have any interest in working for the Department of State or Department of Defense, but it was fascinating to me as a 20-year-old. Others went in to learn how to work for the government. I didn't know they had to teach you that. In other words, being administrators, managers, or whatever in city government or county government. And the others chose to study political science in an area of state governments, and eventually someone may run for office in that affairs. So, but mainly most were basically looking at law school. I do remember a couple who were liberals and who were somehow I had a pause here, who were from California, who were going to the University of South Carolina at Aiken. I'll never figure that one out. But anyway, they were liberals, and naturally they wanted to always be helpful to those who were downcast, and that the government should help them. So, and I was dumbfounded basically that more than 50% of the people in the class were all for it. They were for this. They wanted it to happen. They wanted to see world government take place. They wanted, almost as though utopian type people, a feeling of simply is that, yes, this would be great. This would be great for all mankind. And not understanding that until probably here recently, that the narrative has always been introduced to get you to follow along. In other words, someone introduces the idea to you, and you don't have the sense to understand basically that you're being led by a carrot to your own demise. So, we know that communism had its effect upon the America early on, and mainly that starts taking place after the 1848 failure of the Marxists to succeed in overthrowing any governments in Europe. And so many of these were either thrown in jail, or some actually escaped and went to Switzerland, and eventually they were allowed to come here. Many of these students who did this, who came here, were Germans. Some probably were French, and probably some were Swiss, but most were probably Germans. And why am I saying that? Because this particular book, Lincoln Marxist, basically refers to these mainly, that those who came here were strong involved in what I call pushing these ideas. And they got active real quick in politics. And they got involved enormously by voting and beginning to support Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, as their candidate. And I'll share this real quickly, and it makes perfect sense how liberals think this way, leftists. They're always wanting a centralized government. They always want power at the top, not from the bottom per se, but from the top. And what I mean by that is they want a strong central government. That's what they want. In other words, they are looking for what I call dictatorship, and you as a commoner having little power to oppose them. So that's what has taken place, and we've seen since that, when Lincoln allowed these men and people to be not only involved in the army, the military, and also a few in his office during his time in the White House. They were communists in his White House. That's right, there was. And they are moles and eventually continue to creep upon. Horace Mann was probably a communist who introduced education to the masses here in the United States. Others were involved. And eventually they continue to mold their way to international banking to bring this country down. It never befuddles me, befollows me just in a way that those industrials who made all their money here in railroading, banking, industrial farming, would actually support the demise of this country. And many of those organizations were analyzed under the Reese Commission back in the 1950s to document that basically these groups, which are tax exempt, are promoting their ideas to the young people. And the young people have no idea. For example, many of the books were published by authors who would push their ideas upon young people. And the Reese Commission and the Cox Committee such were involved in this until they were stopped. But this was those who were tax-exempt foundations. Many of your think tanks are also involved in this, in foreign affairs. This is why the United States has been involved in wars far more than most, in fact, probably far more than any other country put together, all of them put together in the last 100, 150 years. Is to bring down this country. Or what I would call create their own government, global government, by eliminating those who oppose Marxist viewpoint. So here we are today, June 8, 2020, and we are seeing what I call people, young people who are in the streets, mainly of cities, and destroying buildings, burning, whatever, and are getting paid for it too. Paid for it. because these people are serious about what they're doing. They want to overthrow the government. That's what they want to do. They want a coup to take place. It doesn't matter. What bothers me is that most Republicans seem to be not doing anything about it. I think that's something that should bother you. What that tells me again that we have two wings of the same bird. Republicans and Democrats are the same bird. There's no difference hardly. There's not a damn dime difference between the two. And so we are in this predicament. And mainly it's taking place in cities, and to getting all the media on the television to basically create fear. I would suggest that basically if you live in a city, you need to leave the city, period. I'm serious. You need to leave. It's going to be too late sometime for some people because you keep thinking everything's going to get better. Nothing's happening by accident here, folks. None of it. Those who seek to overthrow this country are working in a way to bring down its demise of this country. And so they're doing it in different ways. One was simply as this virus outbreak. Oh, the virus is nothing but a false flag. That's all it was. It was a false flag. It was a way for those who, quote unquote, could destroy the last competition to those who want to seek to control business in this country. It is also about the Federal Reserve that's giving $1 trillion a day to the government to, quote unquote, keep cash in the society, in our economy. And what it's doing is wrecking the dollar. The more dollars you have, the less they're worth. Okay? Very simple. The other key is that Nixon, in his day of time, in the 1970s, took us off the gold standard. Way to go, Nixon. Really brilliant ideas that you come up with. But these are all, they took place for a reason. The Federal Reserve was created by Wilson, Woodrow Wilson, another communist. And I'm going to tell you, folks, there have not been really many good presidents since the 1900s. There hasn't. They've all been working to bring this country down. And if this country collapses economically, it will have enormous effects upon the rest of the world. You see, what I'm hearing is probably 25 to 30% of the people are unemployed in this country. I do not know if that's true. I do know that in my sector, that is in the southeast where I live, I have not seen many people laid off in this area where I'm at. And that's good. That's good for the people here. But most people here in this area don't make a lot of money in the first place. So it's not, there are some good government jobs here, yes. There are some corporations and plants here also, yes. So there's advantageous, yes. But it has affected this city where I live at enormously because there are places that are closed. Okay. And I rode to about 15 miles north of here a couple of days ago and noticed that a car dealership looks like it's closing its doors. And we're not talking about a small dealership, but it's been there for a long time, and it's a Chevrolet dealership. So, but it's important you understand basically what is transpiring. And Trump has done very little. I do not want the military to be involved in this. I believe the military will exacerbate this whole situation worse. I believe the best thing to do is to allow them in some ways to continue what they're doing and basically throw these people in jail and arrest them, that is, and let it wind out. Okay? But the key is simply is that charging these kids, this is despicable. That young people is very young. In fact, they're being as low as small, young as 11, 12 years old are being used in this whole ploy too. So much for the family, right? Yeah, so much for the family. That's another thing that's been going on for many, many years too, is to do that, was to destroy the family, and they've done a good job of that. It's imperative that we understand, as the longer it takes them, they will eventually, in some ways, begin to weaken. The media is our enemy too. Immensely, the media is our enemy because they are propagating this enormously, and that's what they want to do. That's the whole idea, is to propagate this and people give up more of their freedoms. Hardly anybody stood against what I call this stupidity of wearing masks to prevent a virus, when actually it doesn't protect you from anything. Your immune system protects you. Hello? You've been paid another theory of germ theory, which is based upon you have germs, by Pasteur, who on his deathbed said he lied. Pasteur was a liar. It's common sense, folks. If we were so sick and bad off before, why didn't we die then, huh? It's very clear. And yet people wear these masks as though it's some kind of joke. And I did visit a grocery store today, and it must be 9 out of 10 people now wearing masks. It's like puppets. People are puppets. They just want to be puppets. They don't want to stand on themselves and have any responsibility. They just want to be told what to do. You can see it clearly. I know, yeah, give me some more money. Help me, please. When you didn't take the responsibility in the first place. I saw people as I drove up to a town near me, and there was another dealership opened up, car dealership, and people are actually looking to buy a new car. How fucking stupid can you be? When things are as bad as they are now, you're going to quote unquote buy a car, which is a depreciating item. It never increases in value. Once it drives off the lot, it's worth 15% less than it was, or 20%. You're overpaying for it. So much nonsense. It's ridiculous. And during this time period, why aren't we in some ways teaching our children? And I don't have any kids. I'm not married. But why are you not teaching your kids how to grow crops for the future? It's the perfect time was to do this, to grow, plant seeds and all this stuff. All the perfect time to do this. And it just befuddles me how stupid people can be. And so there are only a few of us here now that realizes what's going on. A few. And unless you wake up, those out there that, see things or understand things, but I don't think you can add up 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. I don't. Prove me wrong, but I don't think you can figure it out. You're being led to your own destruction. Because when you become more and more dependent upon the government, you become more and more of a slave. And they just gradually put the chains on you. And eventually you won't have the ability to even get out and escape. You'll be trapped. Most people are already. Because most are in debt. Most don't want to take responsibility about anything. They don't want to take responsibility if they did someone wrong to go back to that person and tell them they were wrong. They don't have any guts, no character. You did someone wrong, you make it right. It's called integrity, folks. And so people basically just lolly-dolly around. And they continue to follow the narrative which is promoted by the media. I haven't kept up with all this stuff because I frankly don't think it's worth keeping up with. What I mean by that is that it's a spiritual fight is what's really going on here, folks. It's not really physical. It's spiritual. You see? They want to prey upon you, those of you are out there who control the many, want to control you in all kinds of aspects of your life. But they prey upon fear. It's like energy for them. And yet they're the very, very few. They've duped most of us by working to destroy mankind in many ways. Like you doctors out there, that you promote pharmacy drugs, you know? You kill people. That's what you do. That's what you really do. You kill people. And about those that fly airplanes that spray chemicals out here in the atmosphere. Yeah, you make good money, but you're killing people. You really are. You're despicable. And those out here that simply is that steal from other people. And I'm not talking about candy bars and food. I'm talking about people who steal when the market goes up and steal when it goes down, what they call boom and bust. Steal. Your money is your God. That's what it's all about. And many of you are trapped in this regard that you have to work in order to, quote unquote, not for food, but because you're in debt you're in so much debt. Scriptures points it out very clearly. The slave is always the slave to those to the lender. It is true. It is so true. Anyway, I've kind of digressed, and I probably need to end this video here. It's amazing. As I am 60 years old, and I remember being in college, and I remember being active in politics, and I never thought about anything of this nature to destroy buildings, to set fires, any of that nature, nothing. Because I knew it was wrong. You see, we're coming to an age that's called Aquarius, and you're not going to be forgiven too much longer.